أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه ثم السلام على آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم الأجمعين إلى يوم الدين صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا صدق الله العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Now, over the past few days, we've been talking about Uswatun Hasana, the Prophet being a phenomenal, compassionate example. We've looked at some goals: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. We've looked at our macro goal, which is in essence having Jannah on earth, contentment on the earth. We want Jannah in the Akhirah, and we want to be able to live life saying to Allah, thank you for life. I did my best to leave this world a better place than what I found it in. And Wakina Adhaban, protection from the fire. And we talked about forgiveness as well. None of these could be done without a team, without people. I talked about Team Muhammad. It was Muhammad, Khadija, and Ali. Today there's 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, which are 25% of the world's population. And yesterday I talked about friends. Without friends, you can't get anywhere. You need that team together. We talked about Khalil and Rafiq and all together as in Habib. Now, there needs to be a methodology by which we can measure ourselves. Everything in life needs measurements. That's why we have tests in life. That's why we have exams in life. To find out, where am I? Where have I got to? All of us, absolutely every single one of us needs to know, where have I reached? Because otherwise we're neither here nor there. I'm going to know something. We can't say, well, inshallah, everything will be all right. Actually, it won't. We need to put some effort in. So what we're going to look at is exactly what Allah tells us is your measures of success. How do I measure my success? And the first measure of success is how I relate to my parents. That's the first measure of success. Now, I'm not only talking to the young people here and their parents, but also we will talk about rebelliousness, and we'll talk about how we treat our parents. So I'm going to go through some anecdotes as well, but before that, let's look at Quran. So all of you know Surah Al-Isra, which is Surah number 17. I think there's nobody here who doesn't know this, and you will listen to it in every majlis about moms or dads. 23 and 24. 17, 23 and 24. Now let's see what Allah says, because Quran is our base where we get to. وَكَذَا رَبُّكَ. And your Rabb has decreed. That means there is no such thing as, I am an exception. Because my parents were different. They didn't teach me this. It's quite easy to blame it all on our parents, right? But here he says, وَكَذَا رَبُّكَ. Your Rabb has decreed. What did he said? أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ. You will not do the ibadah. You will not be the slave of anybody but him. Now look what he says straight away. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Straight after his name, he doesn't say go and pray. He doesn't say go and fast. He doesn't say go and do Hajj. He doesn't say do good deeds. La, 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 la. He says do my ibadah straight after. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Let me explain ihsan. And I'll take it as Shaheed Mutahhari explains this in his book about Islamic economics. And I'll use my words, not his words. I'm paraphrasing. So he said, say you had £1 and your neighbor had none. Right? You had £1, your neighbor had none. It is fariza, wajib, that you give your neighbor 50 pence. You keep 50 and you give him 50. He didn't talk pence, huh? I'm talking my language, so please don't tell me I can't find it. 50-50. Ihsan is giving your £1 to your neighbor. What does he say? وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. This is Quran, this is no hadith. He says to your parents you have to ihsan, you have to give everything. Now he goes further. He says, إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ أَحَدَهُمْ. If any one of them, in the kalkibara ahadahum wa kilahum, that means if one or both of them reach old age, and that says he's got a sense of humor, because they're always going to be older than you. He's really got a sense of humor, because he says if they are older, which means they're older than you, I mean they're never going to be younger than you. So he says, here we go. What are you supposed to do? فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Don't even say uff. Now, uff is an Arabic word which means don't raise your voice at them. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You may feel bad because, I mean, parents, they can be a pain in the neck. I'm one of them, I know, right? Sometimes they just go on and on and on. But he says you may feel it, but you will never verbalize it. I keep on saying this. I give examples from my life. My father died when I was 10. I remember Sehri when I was a child. My mother would wait while me and my father had Sehri. She would just sit there and drink water. And all I can remember is him pointing to this woman and saying, this woman you will never hurt. I don't care what you do in life, he said. It doesn't matter. You can do what you want, but this woman you will never ever hurt. And that stuck in my head. It didn't move anywhere. So he says here, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. And then he says, وَلَا تَنْحَرْهُمَا. You know in Quran you read, أَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَنْحَرْ. What does tanhar mean? You will never rebuke them. You will never put the phone down on them, even if they go on and on and on, even though you have an exception, you think. You don't. فَلَا تَنْحَرْهُمَا. You will never rebuke them. You will never turn them away. You will bear with it. Both of them, huh? Not only moms here, by the way. وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. When you speak to them, speak with respect. Speak to them with qawlan karima. Kareem means respect with kindness. I don't know about you. I'm 63. Now if I ask my children, how do you do this? Have you tried? Say Excel. I'm really bad at it, okay? Tell them, how do you do this? They go, press this and this and this and this. And Papa, ask them, no? Slowly. No, this and this, and you'll do it, Mama. And they say, well, Mama, give me, I'll do it. But I didn't ask you to do it. I asked you to show me. When you were learning to walk and talk, in fact, when you were learning to talk, how many times did you ask me something? What's that? How is it? What is it? But you can't say that. You just can't. So here he says, speak to them with respect, okay? وَحْفِظْ, and it's not enough. He goes on. وَحْفِظْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ. Lay the wings of your mercy under their feet. Now what does that mean? That means lower your wings of humility. You might be the CEO of the biggest company in the world. You might be the greatest president of the world. But when it comes to your mother, you need to show humility. This is Quran. وَحْفِظْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ. And then you will not be able to do what you think you have done to your mom and dad. Then you raise your hands in every single salah and you say, وَقُرْ رَبِّ رَحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. رَبِّ رَحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. My Rabb, have rahmah, have incredible rahmah on them, like they had rahmah on me when I was an infant. This is connected to Allah. Humble despite whatever you are, despite nobody has an exception, by the way. Nowhere in this Quran does it say you've got an exception. And we'll come to rebelliousness in a little while. If you want Allah's rahmah, your first measure is, how do I respond to my parents? Now, if you don't have children, that's okay. That's what Allah has willed. Then use your ability to touch another child's life. There are so many opportunities. So many. Come and teach. Come and look after them. Help someone. It's the same thing. Giving birth and raising a child is not much of a difference there. Okay, in fact, raising a child is much difficult. We'll talk about it. So I'm going to go through some anecdotes. Many of you may have heard them, but repetition is good. And it's good right now while you're listening to me to continually say, Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. Those of you who have parents, my goodness, treasure them. Hold on to them. Because those of us who don't will tell you how difficult it is to live without them. How difficult it is. Okay, number one. I'm going to go through some anecdotes because that's the best way I can explain it. There was a young man who was looking after his old mother. Now, you know what? You say it's easy to look after babies. That's what people say. Oh, they're so cute. But have you ever looked after an old person? Now, this young man, looked after his mother 24/7. Clothed her, dressed her, looked after her all the way. One Hajj, he carries her on his back and he walks to Makkah. And he sees the Prophet there. And he says, Ya Rasulallah, have I fulfilled my duty to my mother? Because the Prophet saw him, he was doing tawaf of the Kaaba. And he said, no. Not even for one night of rocking of the cradle. He said, how so? It's so much easier to look after a baby. My goodness, they're so cute. But this old woman, I look after her. He said, because this mother of yours, when she rocked your cradle, every moment she prayed for your baqa. She prayed that you lived and that her life would be given to you. But you, when you're looking after her, you're thinking, when will this end? There is a difference in your du'as, in your intention of how you're looking after. I remember once, you know what, our senior citizens, and death doesn't ask whether you're young or you're old. Our senior citizens are the pillars of our community. I remember very, it's vivid, even now. I called someone who was driving their car. And I said, I'm really sorry, I heard about your mom. And she tells me, my mom is in a better place. Chuti gaye. That's the word she used. Are you serious? Chuti gaye. Life is a gift. It is an absolute gift. If you were given the chance to keep your mother or father alive for 1 second, do it. Even if you have to sell your house. It doesn't matter. Because that dua you will never get. Prophet Musa hurrying all the way, always up to talk to God. One day Jibreel says, Musa, slow. He says, why? I want to go see God. I'm going to talk to God. He says, Musa, your mother, Yukabit, has died. Musa, there's nobody who wakes up in the middle of the night and raises their hands to do dua anymore. Musa, you've lost that. It's gone. You don't have it. So now you have to look after yourself. You won't be able to get that dua anymore. There's a person who came to the sixth Imam. He said, so many problems. Everything is going wrong. Everything I touch is becoming dust. Nothing is working. He said, have you got a mama? I said, no. Have you got your mama's grave? No. He said, I don't even know where she's buried. He said, go into your backyard. Draw a line. Make the niyat for you from her grave, the alim of ours. Read him. When his mom died, she was in her 90s. She was old. And Sayyid Ansari wept and wept and wept. He cried so much. His students told him, why are you crying? She was an old woman. She had to die. Why are you crying so much? He didn't say anything because he's an alim. He doesn't say much. But then they bugged him and they said, you don't cry. You're not supposed to cry so much. That's what life happens. You know, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And he told them, he said, do you have any understanding of who this woman was? I am who I am because of my mother. She made me who I am. It goes for your teachers as well. I'm just going to tell you some stories so it actually sticks in your mind. I'll tell you a story about Uwais Qarani. You might have heard about Uwais Qarani. Uwais Qarani is known as a companion of the Prophet, but he'd never seen the Prophet, never. So Uwais Qarani used to look after a herd of animals, and he lived with his blind mama. And his mom sensed, he always talked about the Prophet. You know, when you just talk about something all the time. And his mom said, okay, go see the Prophet. But only for one day. When you get to Medina, you will stay for one day and you will come back. He said, done. He was so happy. His mom had actually allowed him to go. He goes to Medina, knocks at the door of the Prophet. He used to live in Yemen. Yemen and Medina is a long distance away. He knocked at the door of the Prophet and Salama opened the door. And she said, I'm so sorry. So sorry. He's away on a trip, but he'll be back in 2 days. Stay. He said, no, my mama said just one day. And with a heavy heart, he goes back to Yemen. Read it. You can search engine it and you'll find Uwais Qarani. When the Prophet comes back, when he comes back to Medina and he comes to his house, he says, there is an energy, there is a fragrance in my house. Who came? And Salma said, Uwais Qarani. He came, he said, he left his energy as a present for me. This is the man who looked after his mama. And he raised his hands and he says, Uwais, you can hear me because I am with you in the land of dreams. Uwais, you are in Yemen, but you are with me. You are with me, yet you are in Yemen. Today he is known as a companion of the Prophet. You and I want to be companions of Imam Zaman, Ajjalallahu Faraja, right? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal Faraja. Look after your moms. Look after your teachers. That's what moms are. If she's alive, sit with her. My greatest regret in life is not spending enough time with my mama. I used to rush back here because of my children and my family. It's the greatest regret I have in my life. Don't have that regret. If she has died, ask for forgiveness for her. Do dua for her. Read Quran for her. Now I'll give you another anecdote. In Safinatul Bihar, there is a man who comes to the Prophet and he says, I can't sleep at night. I just cannot sleep because in my ears I hear my daughter saying, Ya Abi, oh my father. You know, the Arabs had a custom. They would bury their daughters, not out of hatred. They used to bury their daughters because they could see how women were used and abused. They didn't want to see their daughters abused. So they would normally, as soon as the child was born, they would bury their daughters. You know, when you read about Ammar Yasir, his mom Sumayya, you read about her, don't you? I'm going to tell you about her so we understand. Sumayya says about how her mother hid her and gave her to her aunt. But I'm just going to take you through a scenario. Just need to take you through it so you understand what they did. So you imagine there is a young girl who's born. Prophet calls them Rahma. When she's born, the father says, got to take her, got to bury her, don't want her to grow up. And mama says, please, few months. And she says, and he says, okay. Then the baby starts toddling and saying mama and baba. And he says, now time's up, I'm going to take her. I want you to imagine what they used to do. So Baba takes this girl, mom dresses her up, he takes her to the village square, and they have a hole there. And she says, Baba, are we going to play hide and seek? And he looks at her and he puts her into the ground. And then they start throwing earth on her and she goes, Ya Abi, don't leave me. This is what this man couldn't sleep with. And the Prophet said, have you got a mom? He said, no. He said, if you had a mom, I would have told you to go and serve your mom and Allah would have forgiven you. But if you don't have a mom, go to your mom's sister, your Masi. Look after her all your life and Allah will forgive you. What is this sin? This is a sin of burying an innocent child. Well, how is it forgiven? By being able to be good to your mom. I mentioned this in the first Majlis. There is a reason why Jannah is under her feet. You know, they say, Al-Jannatu tahta aqdama ummahatikum. There's a reason for it. The reason is if God gave Jannah to you in your hands, it didn't matter what child you had. You'd give them away. You just give it away. The reason why it's put under your feet is that you need to carry a bit of her weight. That's the only way you will get this Jannah. It's amazing. Now, rebelliousness, and we'll come back to the Quran. So, umpteen times you get called. What did I do wrong? Suddenly, that child who prayed, who came to the mosque with you, who was never rude, who never raised her voice or his voice, now they answer back. They don't want to pray. They don't want to come to the mosque. They don't care. You tell them anything, they say, I don't believe, leave me alone. You're going on and on and on and on. I just don't want to know. And you go, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? And somebody tells you, well, it's your past sins that are coming. No. Let's look at Quran. We're going to look at solutions from the Quran. We're going to look at what Quran says. First of all, I'm going to give you a few examples. So the first thing we're going to look at Prophet Adam. Prophet, yes? Did he not raise his children properly? Habil and Kabil. You think he raised Habil differently and Kabil differently? No. Yet what happened? Kabil killed Habil. Right, let's look at some other prophets. Prophet Yaqub. How many sons? 12? Yeah? Binyamin, Yusuf, beautiful children. What happened to the others? Lied, deceived, kidnapped. Did they not? Did Prophet Yaqub raise them differently? No. Prophet Nuh. What happened to that son who said, I don't want to be with you. I'm going to go on a mountain. I'm going to keep safe. Did he raise them differently? No. Suratul Kahf. You read Suratul Kahf, right? They come across this Prophet Khizr and Prophet Musa. Have you read this? It's so beautiful. There's this child, this man, this boy, young boy, whom Prophet Musa kills. Khizr said, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? How can you just go kill someone just like that? What does Allah say? The parents are very, very righteous. He is one who is evil. Isn't that what Quran says? How can righteous parents find an evil child? So number one, Quran tells me and you that, you know what? It doesn't matter how you raise them, how righteous you are. You have to do your best, right? Now let's just look at that child who comes and says, I hate you, I don't believe in what you're saying, all the rest of it. So I'm going to direct you to Surah Al-Ahqaf, Surah number 46, and it goes from ayah 15, 16, and 17. 15 actually tells you that وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا, which we talked about anyway. And it says how a mother carries her child with difficulty upon difficulty. Now let's look at ayah 16. Please, if you've got your Qurans, you can look at you. Now, Allah says that those who are good to their parents, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ يَتَقَبَّلُ عَنْهُمْ أَحْسَنُ مَا عَمَلُوا, Allah will accept the best of their deeds. وَنَتَجَاوَزْ عَنْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ, He will cover up their sins. And they will be Ashabul Jannah. Simple, easy. So if I am good to my parents, whatever they're like, it doesn't matter. 3 things are guaranteed by Allah. I said this before with other ayat of the Quran. Keep this in your Quran. And if anybody I'm with you, Waqafan, if anybody in your grave, any angel comes and says anything, say, I looked after my mom. I looked after my dad. So this is 46:16, by the way. Now let's look at 47. Ayah 17 of Surah 46, not 47, 17. He says, وَالَّذِي كَالَ, those who, لِوَالِدَيْهِ أُفٍّ, who, they are those who take away their children, take away their parents. They say, go away. They slam the phone down. They say oof to them. They're rude to them. They talk back to them. Lakuma, both of them, by the way. He said, أَتَعَادَنِي أَنْ أَخْرُجَ. And they say, you know what? Are you telling me that I'll be taken out of my grave? Because that's what moms and dads do. They say, don't you know, you got to answer in the akhirah. So Allah is saying, and when you tell them that remember your akhirah, وَقَدْ كَلَتِ الْقُرُونَ مِنْ قَبْلِ, they will say, well, generations before me left as well. What are you on about? Nobody's come back to tell you anything. وَهُمَا يَسْتَغِيثَانِ اللَّهِ, and the parents do istighatha. Say, Ya Allah, what did I do? How did I go wrong? You know what istighatha is? Istighatha is when there's a real drought in a country and people pray and rain comes. When they pray after a drought, it's istighatha. So these parents are praying, Ya Allah, وَهُمَا يَسْتَغِيثَانَ اللَّهِ. And then they look at those children that they loved so much and they say, وَيْلَكَ, Amin, never, ever ever have your parents say that to you. Wailaka means woe be on you. Wail is the lowest pit of Jahannam. What have I raised? What is this that I have raised? Wailaka. Wailaka is awful. So these parents are now telling their children, Wailaka, curse be on you. Amin, believe. And then Allah says, Inna wa'adallahi haq. This is such a scary statement. If you and I do this to our parents, He says, my promise is going to be true. You will never, ever, ever succeed in the dunya or the akhirah. Forget it. It's never going to come your way. But you can't do anything. Let's see what we have to do. فَيَقُولُ مَاذَا هَذَا إِلَّا سَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And when parents tell them anything, they say, these are ancient stories. You're always talking about Majlis, and you're always talking about Karbala, and what is wrong with you? This is ancient stories. I don't want to know. I just want to know. So how am I supposed to react if my children come like this? What do? I raise them to the best of my ability. The milk that I fed them was fed with the love of Hussein. So what happened? What do I do? Well, I'm going to go to Quran in a minute. And the answer in Quran is stop nagging. Stop saying anything. There are two types of parenting. One is spiritual parenting and one is emotional parenting. When a parent realizes that continuously nagging, pray, fast, do this, do that, is not working, stop. Because you have raised them to be adults. Once they're adults, and you could call them adults in this country as 18, if that's what you call as an adult, that's okay. Then leave them. Because you have done your best. You will not be questioned about it. They are now adults, they have freedom of choice, they will be questioned by it. I don't say condone it. Don't say it's okay. You can show your displeasure, but that's about it. Stop nagging. But every human being needs a parent. Don't stop being a parent. Love them with all your heart. Be a mom. I'm not talking to dads right now, but be a dad. Be a mom. Moms love unconditionally. Mom don't ask questions. Moms don't nag at 18. Leave them. They'll be okay. What you raised will always come back. Imam Baqir says they will all come back to the house of the Ahlul Bayt. It will take time, but nagging will only chase them away. Now, how do I know? Where does this come from? Surah Yusuf. Do you want to look at it? Surah Yusuf, ayah number 18. 12, 18. In fact, I'll go and explain the whole thing. وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيصِي بِدَمٍ كَاذِبٍ. So his sons come with his dirty shirt with blood on it. Don't they do that? You know the story, don't they? And they say that this is Yusuf's blood. A wolf ate him up. What he says? قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. He tells them, you have fooled yourself into doing something evil. You have kidded yourself. Then what does he say? فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. Patience is, have beautiful patience. Yaqub doesn't shout at them. Have beautiful patience. He doesn't stop being a father. You think he didn't know they were lying? If you've got children and they lie, I mean, tell me you don't know. You know. I didn't do it. Really? Okay. I've prayed. Really? I know. Okay. I'm going to take you back just because you're all so serious here, right? As a child, I lived in a 4-story building. And my bedroom, you could see from the terrace right in. I was 5. And I wanted to finish my Enid Blyton books. Do you remember Enid Blyton? Well, some of you are too young. Oh, anyway, Enid Blyton was beautiful. And this book, it was a mysterious adventure. I still remember I wanted to finish it. So I thought, and it was time for Salah. And in our house, it was either before Salah or after Salah. So I remember walking to the bathroom in my flip-flops, washing my feet, because then we had terrazzo floors, so you could see somebody had walked back. Kids are very clever, okay? I took out my musalla, it was behind the door. You know those mkeka ones, have you seen them? Yeah? Took them behind the door, rustled up my chadar, I put it down, and then I sat down and I finished my book. And then we could have lunch. So I went down for lunch, and my Baba said, have you prayed? And I said, I'm really hungry. Couldn't lie. As a child, it's very difficult to lie. So next day, he brings me 2 brooches, 2 angels. And he pins one on my right shoulder and one on my left shoulder. I felt like the luckiest child in the world. I mean, beautiful gold angels. He never told me why. Nothing. When I had children of my own, and one day I was sitting with my mama and I said, Mama, there was such beautiful brooches. He said, do you know why he gave them to you? I said, no. He said, that day that you didn't pray when you were 5, he was watching you, but he never wanted to tell you. He just wanted to remind you that the right angel writes down your good deeds, and the left angel writes down your bad deeds. And the left angel gives you time. If you correct yourself, he rubs them out. I did go back and pray, by the way, okay? So, just didn't pray on time. So he rubs them out. This is how you're supposed to do sabrun jameel. It's amazing. Wallahul musta'an. And Allah is there. He will help you with whatever you need. You've got problems with your children? Ask him. Wallahul musta'an. He will help. Ala ma tasifun. What they conjure in their brains, or what they make, what they build, Allah will help. Now what happens? So they've come with this thing. He's got sabrun jameel. What does he do? وَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ. He turns away from them. And then وَقَالَ يَا عَصَفَ عَلَى يُوسُف. I'm so sad. He says, how I grieve for Yusuf. وَبْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. He cried so much that his eyes had become white. Now what did his children do? No, they didn't say, Basi, I'm really sorry. He did a dua. He says, Ya Rabbi, have rahmah on me. You took my sight, you took my 2 sons. They shouted at him. You know, when you're guilty, have you seen children when they're guilty? Even you and I, when are guilty, we shout and we scream, and when you're guilty, you scream. So look what they said. قَالُوا تَاللَّهِ تَفْتَوْ تَذْكُرُ يُوسُف حَتَّى تَكُونَ حَرَضًا أَوْ تَكُونَ مِنَ الْهَالِكِينَ. They said, what's wrong with you? Forget him, he's gone. He's gone. What are you remembering him all the time? You'll make yourself ill and you will die. Don't do that. So instead of saying, sorry, I don't understand why you're crying, they shouted. Who am I aiming this at? As those of us whose parents have become really fragile. You know, as you get older, you get more sensitive. You know that? Your children just say boo and you cry. Ask mine, they'll tell you. Okay? Before, nothing affected you. Now, they just have to say anything. And then they say, sorry, Ma, I was a moody poo. That's what I read the other day. Okay? So, Kala innama. Now, what did you and I supposed to say? Kala. Please remember this. Forget everything I said. Remember this. Ayah number 86, Surah Yusuf. Kala innama ashku bathi wa huzni ilallah. What does Yaqub say? I complain of my bath. You know what bath is? Bath is that grief that eats you out inside. That's what bath is. Huzn is fresh grief. So he says, I only complain of the grief that is eating me out inside. And my huzn ilallah wa'alamu minallahi ma la ta'lamun. And I know from Allah what you do not know. He doesn't stop. He tells his children, idhabu. This is, I wish you read Surah Yusuf, ayah 87. He said, idhabu, go. فَتَحَسَّسُوا مِنْ يُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ. Go find Yusuf and his brother. وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. Never despair of Allah's mercy. إِنَّهُ لَا يَتَحْسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا قَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. The only people who despair of Allah's mercy are the people who do not believe. You want help with your children? You want help with your mamas? You want help with anything in life? Don't despair for His mercy. Sit on that musalla, complain. Talk and talk and talk. Tell him, this is what's happening. This is how I'm hurting. Don't nag them. Don't. It's not going to work. You're going to chase them away. You're really going to chase them away. Because you've already told them. They know. They know exactly what you want to say. Have you ever had children say, oh God, here she goes again? Oh, you haven't, have you? All right. Inshallah, you'll never have to hear that again. Okay? Have you brushed your teeth? Oh God, yes, Mom. Have you prayed? Yes, Mom. But your musalla is still there. It's okay. Okay? You've told them once. They know. So, back to just a little bit of preamble. Moms, really important. Children, take it easy. You've done your bit and don't blame yourself. Nowhere is it written that your sins are translated to your children. I don't know which God you may believe in if you believe in that, but my God is Rahmanur Rahim, and so is yours, by the way. Okay. All right. Ek salawat padhe deso, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj. And the reason why I picked this topic today is because in Karbala there was a phenomenal mother. Phenomenal. All the mothers of Karbala are phenomenal. Now today, just as a preamble, I'm going to talk a little bit about who Aun and Muhammad were. So this is history. Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, whom you know as Ja'far al-Tayyar. Who was he? Imam Ali's brother. He marries Asma. Who is Asma? Do you remember Asma at the time when Sayyidah Fatima dies? Best friend, confidant of Sayyidah Fatima. And you will realize why I'm telling you this story. So he marries Asma and they emigrate to Ethiopia. You know the first emigration that went to Ethiopia? They emigrate to Ethiopia. The first Muslim born in Africa, if you thought you were born in East Africa and you were the first Muslim, la. First Muslim was Abdullah. His name was Abdullah. They had 3 children. Abdullah, Aun and Muhammad. Not this Aun and Muhammad. These are the children of Asma. Abdullah, Aun and Muhammad. Okay. Ja'far comes back during the victory of Battle of Ahzab. He comes back to Makkah. And the Prophet said, I don't know what is more happier, Ahzab or seeing Ja'far come back. Ja'far fights in the Battle of Muta. Our history is so beautiful. I wish I could tell you this. Anyway, Ramina's looking at me. Time. Okay, 8 after Hijrah. Battle of Muta, Ja'far dies. He's known as Ja'far al-Tayyar because of his wings. His arms are cut off, just like Hazrat Abbas. Right? So it's the Prophet who tells Asma, goes to tell her, that Ja'far is now in heaven. He's known as Ja'far al-Tayyar. So he's died. Asma marries Abu Bakr. Okay, don't look at me. Asma marries Abu Bakr. They have a son called Muhammad. When Abu Bakr dies, Asma marries Imam Ali. Really? You're looking at me, right? Only because we come from the Indian subcontinent and our brains are wrong. We don't look at Islam, we look at tradition. Who does Asma marry? Imam Ali. Who was she the best friend of? Sayyidah Fatima. Who does Sayyidah Fatima talk to before she dies? She says, I don't want my body to be seen even after I die. Today we have a shabi. You will see the shabi, right? Which is a curved thing. She says in Ethiopia, this is how they buried their bodies. This is what Asma did. Whenever you see a shabi, you remember Asma. It is her sunnah that we follow. When she told Fatima, Sayyidah said, now I feel pleased that my body will be inside something where nobody will be able to see me. Okay, so she marries Imam Ali. They have 2 sons, Yahya and Aun. Okay, are you good with that? Fine. Now, Asma dies in her 90s. Now, Abdullah, who is the daughter of who? Good. Okay, you got it right. Asma. Who does he marry? Zainab, who is the daughter of Imam Ali. And who was Asma married to? Imam Ali. Can you see this in our community? You see what we would do? We would make them natbar. Okay? This is what we do. But this is history. It teaches you what life is about. So Abdullah marries Zainab. He's known as Abul Masakin, the father of the poor. Miskin. He looks after them. A phenomenal man. What does she ask in her mahar? Besides the money that you have got to ask for, she says, wherever my brother goes, I will go. Do you allow me to do that? And he says, yes. This is Zainab. She's something else. They have 6 children. They have Muhammad al-Akbar, who was killed in the Battle of Siffin. They had Muhammad al-Askar and Aun. You know Muhammad al-Askar and Aun, because these are the ones that we're going to talk about today. Okay? And then she had Abbas, she had Ali, and she had Kulthum. These are 6 children. I'm a Khoja. Keep on saying that. We don't read. We don't read. We need to read history. It's beautiful. These children were something else. But this is Masayib, and I'd like to go to the night of Ashura. So on the night of Ashura, there is a buzzing sound. There is du'as, there is Quran. In every tent there are children whose moms are talking to them. And they say, you know what? You are going to be those whom we will offer to us, say the Shuhada. You are the ones who will make us proud. In one tent, they say, the Zainab, she tells Aun and Muhammad, they're tiny. They're not that big at all. She says, tomorrow, when you fight, you're brave. You are like your father. You're brave. You're like your grandfather. When you go and you fight and you get to the river, before you drink water, think of Ali al-Asghar and Sakina. They're children. They've been thirsty too. On the day of Ashura, she knows that her brother is going to say, there's no way you're going to take these children onto the battlefield. She accompanies them and she says, Hussein, these are my sons. He looks at her and he says, I can't say no to you. I can't say anything to you. So him and Hazrat Abbas dress these two young boys in an armor. We are told in history that Imam Hussein sits down on the ground so many times, and Abbas says, Mawla, is everything all right? He says, they are so small. When I sit on the ground, they look taller. But when I stand up, they look so little, Abbas. How am I going to subject them to the enemies? When they're ready, their swords are dragging on the ground. One is held in the hand of Imam Hussein, one holds the hands of Hazrat Abbas, and both of them are put on the horses. And they say, don't worry, we'll be fine, we're brave. Mama said, we're really brave. Imam looks at Zainab and says, Zainab, you're a mom. Zainab, your du'as are never ever rejected. Zainab, raise your hands in du'a for your sons. The two children go to the battlefield. Omar Saad looks at them and says, who are they? Who are these awesome young men? They looked like young men, that's how they were dressed. And somebody says, they are the sons of Zainab. He says, the Zainab that Hussein loves? Yes, that's Zainab. I will hurt Hussein. They surround these two little boys who don't have much of a chance. When they fall down, they say, Assalamu alayka ya ummi, ammi, which is, salams be on you, our uncle. He runs to get these two children. He holds one in each arm and he takes them to the tents and he says, where's Zainab? Somebody find Zainab, find the mother. They look for Zainab. She is raising her hands in dua. She's on the musalla, but she's saying, Allahumma taqabbal hadha al-qurban minni. Accept this sacrifice from me. You know, in Sham, in Damascus, she doesn't ask for anything. She says, I just want a hall, an empty hall where I can tell you what happened in Karbala, what my brother fought for. He fought for freedom. They give her the hall. The women of Sham come to give their condolences. Each of the women has got a head in her lap. But there are two tiny heads behind the door. And somebody says, do these not have a mother? Are they orphans? We will be their mamas. And somebody said, no, these are the sons of Zainab. She has Hussein in her lap. She doesn't cry for her sons. When she gets back to Medina, she sits on the steps of her house. Abdullah comes back and he says, oh, old woman, is there anything I can do for you? She says, oh, Zaifa. And she says, did you not recognize me? I am Zainab. I am your wife. It's what grief does to you. It is said that when she goes into her house, the first time she cried when she sees the bedroom of Aun and Muhammad, and she says, Wa Aun, wa Muhammad, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, saya'lamuna alladhina dhalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun. Let us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be able to keep our moms and dads safe. And those of us who don't have moms and dads, Ya Allah, please forgive them. Grant them Jannah and a place with the Masumeen. Ya Allah, give us the tawfiq to be able to honor our moms and dads. Ya Allah, please, we ask you in the name of Aun and Muhammad to give shifa to all those who are ill. And Ya Allah, all those who have hajat here, all those who have children here, Ya Allah, let their children become righteous and fulfill their hajat. فَتَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ.